Petrilli here for a brand new episode of the Riff Rundown with my friends at Fishman. Today's episode is pre-recorded, but don't worry, we're still gonna have a ton of fun today. So today we're gonna be going over Cold, Cold Heart by Hank Williams. Just such a fun, iconic song. Really cool, beginner-friendly chords. We're gonna be doing some really neat alternate bass lines with the open strings, the 1 and the 5. So it's really, really fun. It's a really, really fun one to play. So have your acoustic guitar in standard tuning for this one. And again, if you guys are enjoying these lessons, be sure to subscribe to the channel. It really does help the cause. So be sure to click that subscribe button. So before we get started here, folks, you know I always like to ask a question. So let me know where you are tuning in from, all right? And your favorite country tune. So where are you tuning in from? Your favorite country song. So let's go ahead and get started here. Here's Cold, Cold Heart. It's a really fun one to play, very cool, beginner-friendly chords, but again, with a really cool bass line with that 1 and 5 going back and forth. So let me show you how to do this. So we're gonna go ahead and start. There's gonna be 3 parts to this tune. There's gonna be the intro, there's your A part, and your B part. So what I'm also gonna do towards the end of the lesson, I'm gonna give you some inversions that you can use higher up the neck. Say you're playing in a band, say you're playing with another guitar player, or say simply you're playing at home with a looper. You'll have different variations of these chords that we're playing here that you can add, you know, to supplement and to just add some really cool melodic interest. So again, just something to have in your back pocket, folks. You know what I always say with these lessons? I like to plant the seeds for you guys. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with this intro. What we're gonna do here is it's gonna be based around an A7 and a D major. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is with this A7, here's how I like to play it. I place my second finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, that note is E, and then I place my 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the B string, that note is C sharp. Now when we're looking at an A7 chord, what are the notes that make up this chord? It's gonna be an A, it's gonna be a C sharp, it's our 3rd, the E's are 5, keep that in mind for later, okay? And the flat 7, okay, and that flat 7 is G, which we have here in this version of the chord, it's gonna be that open G string. So all 4 of those chords are present within this version. All right, so we have that there. But what we're gonna do here is we're gonna first strike the open A string, and then what we're gonna do is it's gonna be a downstroke and followed by an upstroke. Okay, so let's just do that together just quickly here. Pretty simple, right? Remember how I said we're doing that alternate bass line? So that bass line here, it's going to be going between the 1 and 5. And we're going to be doing that for all our chords in this song. So in this case, we're pretty lucky. 5 happens to be an E. And guess what? We have an open E string right there. So we're going to incorporate it in this chord. So here's what we're going to do. Open A string, strike the string, down, up stroke. Now we hit the low E string. upstroke with that A7. So it's going to sound like this if we play it slowly together. Here's how it sounds. Okay, so I'm going to play this a few times and see how this bass line, right? It gives it some really cool movement. So here we go. Feel free to follow along here. Just like that. Okay, so just like that. So what's really neat here is now we're going to go to the D chord, okay? So the D major, D, F sharp, and A are 1, 3, 5. Let's find them in this chord here. Place your first finger on the 2nd fret of that G string. That note is A. That's our 5. Keep that in mind for later, okay? We have our 2nd finger here, placing that on the F sharp, 2nd fret of the E string. 3rd finger reaches over to play the 3rd fret of the B string. That note is D. D is in dog. So we're going to strum the bottom 4 strings. Just like that, okay? So when we start off this chord again, we're going to do that 1 and 5 alternating thing with the bass, okay? So we're going to strike the open D string this time. Down, up stroke. Now the 5th is A. Guess what? We have an open A string. Strike that. And another down, up stroke with that D chord. Okay, so it's going to sound like this if we play this slowly. Not too bad, right? Not too bad. So now let's go ahead and do this. Let's incorporate the A7 and the D7 here. So in this intro, we're going to have 3 bars of A7. We're going to have 1 bar of D major, okay? And then we'll get into part A. So let's start off with that A7. Here we go. I'll slow it down just a little bit for you. So here we go. Okay, let's do that again. So that's what's happening there in that intro. 3 bars of the A7 into 1 bar of the D major. So now we're going to look into our part A of the song, and it's going to go something like this. So it's the same chords that we just did. We're just going to flip the order, okay? So we're going to have a D major chord. We're going to have 3 bars of that into an A7. We're going to do 4 bars of that and then 1 bar of D major, okay? So let's go ahead and do that here. Again, I don't need to go over the chords. We just did them a few moments ago, all right? So D major, remember, the alternate 1, downward upstroke, 5, downward upstroke, okay? Downstroke, upstroke, hit the 5, downstroke, upstroke, okay? It's just like that. I know you can do this. I know you can do this. It's super fun, all right? And also, too, I'm sure some of you will ask questions, could I play this with my thumb? Absolutely. You could. Has a little bit of a different sound. If you like that warmer, more rounded sound, right? Because there's a difference between the sound of flesh versus the sound of a pick or a plectrum, wherever you are from. So totally up to you. You can completely finger pick this and just pick with your thumb. So totally works. Okay, so totally up to you. I like to use a pick with this. All right, so let's go ahead and do the intro. Remember, 3 bars of the A7 into 1 bar of D, and then we're going to go ahead into our part A. 3 bars of D, 4 bars of that A7, and then 1 bar of that D chord, okay? So here we go. I'll slow it down just a little bit, and here it is. So here's the intro. Now our part A. Pretty cool, right? Let's go ahead and do it again. Pretty neat, huh? So that's what we want to do there. So, you know, I love the metronome. So when you're practicing this, notice how we really need to keep time here. So practicing this with the metronome, I think is a really, really great idea. It's a really, really great idea. It keeps you accountable with your time. It's a wonderful tool. They got apps that are free, and I'm sure you can even go on Google and look up a metronome. So there's lots of resources to work and to play with time. Again, it really keeps you accountable, and it really does make you such a great musician when you can, really work with a metronome. So there's one thing I would say to accompany this lesson: have a metronome handy. All right, so that's what's happening there for that part A. Now for the part B part, it's going to go like this. A lot of similar chords. We're still going to have that D and that A7, but now we're going to incorporate a D7 and a G chord, okay? So the chords in this chorus are going to be D, D7 to G, to A7, and then back to D. And that's pretty much the tune, which is really, really cool here. But then, of course, we're going to get into these inversions right after this, too. All right? So let's go ahead and work this out. Here is the chord, or the part B. Here's how we're going to do this. Again, slow and steady wins the race. You can't play anything fast. You can't play slow. All right, so remember this as you are going through this, particularly my beginners. I'm talking to you. Slow and steady, slow and steady. All right, so we've got that D major here. We incorporate the A, that's our 5. So again, D, down, up, A, down, up, D, down, up, A, down, up. Now we go to a D7. So what's the difference? Obviously, they sound different, right? To some of my students, I go, think of a 7th chord, it kind of sounds like a question mark. Okay. So we have that flat 7 now here on top of that 1, 3, and 5, right? Those same building blocks. Really, really interesting is that this D chord and D7, they have all the same notes, except D7 we add 1 note. And in that case, the D7, we're adding a C, which would be our flat 7, okay? So we're going to do here how we play that D7 chord. You're going to get your first finger, you're going to place it on C, first fret of the B string, yay, all right? Your second finger, go ahead and place that on the 2nd fret of that G string. That note is A. You're going to get your 3rd finger here. All right, for some of you, I know it's going to be a bit of a squeeze, a bit of a tight spot here. But again, keep those fingers nice and curled, and just get that in there. All right, so that 3rd finger is going to be on the F sharp, 2nd fret of that E string. So just like with our D major chord, we're going to strum the bottom 4 strings. So just like that. Okay, that's how I want it to sound. Now, our 1 and 5, they're the same. So we're still going to strum that D to A. That's not going to change, Okay, what's changing is the chord itself. So we're gonna have 2 bars of this D chord. Now quickly switch to D7. Keep the open D string and open A string alternating. Just like that, okay? So I know this move for some of us, and it's so funny to me, I've noticed in my teaching, that D minor, D7, and D, switching between those 3 chords can be a little bit of it's kind of like, you know, tapping your head and rubbing your stomach kind of thing, but slow and steady. Really think of this as a choreography, okay? So moving from that D chord to that D7, we want to do here, I know what helps me and what helps a lot of my one-on-one students here, lead with that first finger. So the first finger goes to C first, and then the second and the third follow through. So if we're looking at this, think of that D7, it kind of looks like a triangle, right? So that first finger is the tip of the triangle, and then you have your second and third finger as that base of the triangle, okay? So D chord leading into that D7, let the first finger lead, okay? And see if that helps you, see if that helps. All right, so we're gonna do that really slow here, because again, I want this to be a really, really successful chord switch for you. So we have D, to that D7, all right? So let's do this a couple times here. I'm gonna take this really slow, because I want this sounding great for you guys. I want you to be successful here, okay? So here we go. Start switching that D7. See how we give ourselves a little time? Let's do that again without the commentary. Let's do this a few more times here. See how when we strike that D string, or the D string, we have a little bit of a window to go and to switch to that D7. Okay, so keep that in mind. So now we're gonna go, the next chord here after this D7 is going to be a G. We're gonna do it in this way. Okay, like the folky style, right? The kind of country style. G chord here with that open B string, okay? Because we want that third nice and pronounced. So G, B, and D, that's the 1, 3, 5 of our G major. Let's go ahead and build the chord. Second finger reaches up to the 3rd fret of the E string. That note is G, it's our root. Your second finger, place that on B, 2nd fret of that A string. 3rd finger, go ahead and place that on G, 3rd fret of that E string. Strum everything. That's how I want it to sound. All right, yes. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna strike the 1, which is at G, the low E string, 3rd fret. That's where G lives. Okay? Down, up, stroke. But this time, our 5 is gonna be somewhere else. Our 5 is D, okay? We have an open D string right here. Let's play it. Okay, so the 1 and 5, they're in a little bit of a different spot. With the rest of these chords, the 5 has been just on the string just above it, but this time the 5 is under us, okay? So we've got G, down, up, D string, down, up. Let's do that a few times here. Just like that. You can do this. All right? So let's go ahead. We're going to do 2 bars of D, 1 bar of that D7, and then we're going to do G. We're going to do 2 bars of that too. All right? So here we go. I'm going to play this a little slower. Here we go. Do that again. after this, we go to our A7. Lucky for us, we already know how to do this. A string, E string, 1, 5, back to our D major. D string, down, up, A, down, up. All right, so let's go ahead and do this part B. Then what we'll do is we'll combine everything else. All right, then we'll get to those inversions. So here we go from the top of part B, starting with 2 measures of the wonderful D major. So here we go, folks. Hope you're having fun with this one. Hope you're having fun. Let's do that again. That's where it is. That's where it is. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. So let's go ahead here. And that's pretty much the tune. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through that intro part. We're going to go through part A into part B. All right? So here it is from the top. Part A. Part B. That's what's happening there. Now, once we get through that B part, okay, we go back to part A, then we go back to part B. Now, after that part B is over, we're going to do 1 bar of A7 into 1 bar of D. Then we go straight back into part A. After that part A, we go back to part B, back to yet another part A, to another part B, okay? Then there's going to be a slight slowing down of that A7 chord, and then we're going to finish with that D major, okay? So now that we've got those, that's the tune. It's really fun. Play along to it. It's a really, really fun one, especially getting that. Now, obviously, the song isn't that fast, but again, as I mentioned at the top, this is a really cool technique that you could use in other songs. We hear it in a lot of country music. So anyway, I like to plant the seeds. So it's a neat thing. With this, it moves and it grooves with such a beautiful rhythm. It's been covered by so many people. Tony Bennett, one of my favorite versions by Norah Jones on her debut album, which is so incredible. It's a really cool, like, jazzy interpretation of it, like the opening bass line. Oh, it's really good. Listen to her cover if you get a chance. It's great. So let's go ahead and look at the inversion. So let's say you're playing with another guitar player. What would be some cool things to do? So you could play D major in this way. And I'm going to get you up the neck a little bit because we're covering a lot of ground right here. Let's cover some ground towards the body of the guitar. So here's a really cool D major that you can use. It's going to be an F shape. We're going to bring it up to the 10th, 11th, and 12th frets. So get your first finger, placing that across the 10th fret of the B string and the E string. So there's your A on the 10th fret of that B string, and then there is your D note on the 10th fret, the E string. So there's your 1 and 5, or your 5 and your 1. So then what you're going to do here, you're going to place that second finger on the F sharp, that's the 11th fret of the G string, and your third finger, place it on the 12th fret of the D string, D note, right? So things start repeating after that 12th fret. So it should look like that. So where your third finger is a root. There's D. And your A is going to be on that B string 10th fret. So say you wanted to follow along. You can do that, okay? So that's that D chord we're going to use there. Now, say the next chord, right? So let's see, let's keep this in line with that part B section. Let's look at the D7. So again, what are those notes in that D7? We're going to have D, F sharp, A, and C, okay? So we're going to do here, you're going to place your first finger on the 12th fret, okay, that D string. You're going to get your second finger, placing that on the 13th fret. Don't worry, you can play this on an acoustic. 13th fret of that B string. There is your C. You're going to get your third finger here, placing it on the 14th fret of the G string. There is your A. There's your 5. And then your pinky finger, place it on the F sharp 14th fret of that E string. So it's going to sound like this. Really cool D7 chord, right? So you can strike the 12th fret of that D string, and then that 14th fret of the G string. That's your 1 and 5, D and A. Again, giving you options. Really cool thing. So we've got D and D7. Pretty neat, right? So then now what we're going to do here is we're going to play G, but we're going to play it here. Now, looks a lot like a D major chord. You are correct, it does. We're going to bring this up, so check it out. So that's D. We bring this entire shape up a whole step. That's E. We bring that up a half step. That's F. We bring that up yet another whole step. There's G major. So G, B, and D, they all live here. Let's find them. First finger is going to be on that 7th fret of the G string. There is D. There's our 5. Your third finger, place it on the 8th fret of the B string. That's G. That's our 1. And then your second finger is going to be playing B, 7th fret of the E string. Only strike the strings that your fingers are on, just like that. And when you're playing this, strike the B string, 8th fret, that's G, and then strike the 7th fret of the D string, or the G string, which is D. Pretty neat, right? So now the final chord here in this inversion is going to be A7. Bring your first finger, make a bar across the 7th fret of the D string, G string, B string, and E string. All right, you're going to get your third finger, placing that on the 9th fret of the G string. That note is E. Second finger is going to go on the 8th fret of the B string. And then you're going to get, which is G there, and then that 4th finger, C sharp, 8th fret, or 9th fret of the E string. And there's your A7. Pretty cool. So you got G here. And then bring that first finger down, A7. And then back to D. And then a cool double stop if you want, you know. There's a place for it. It's good stuff. Anyhow, that's Cold Cold Heart by Hank Williams. Such an honor to teach this tune to all of you. As always, if you guys are enjoying these lessons, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Check out all the cool stuff that Fishman is up to. I left the link in the video description so you can see all the cool stuff that I use during these lessons. It's a lot of fun. Again, I will be back live next week. Always wishing all of you much, much success in your musical journey. I hope you guys enjoy playing this one. Folks, you guys have a good time, and I will see you next time.